Hello, AP Psychology students. You are into the big leagues. This is one of the harder chapters we're going to do. Working on Chapter 4, Section 4, a tour through the brain. So let's get into this. The idea that locations and function goes back to Joseph Gall, the guy from phrenology, that there's different parts of the brain that control different things. He just thought the bumps of your head, told your personality. So we're gonna use this as our brain. I want you to make a brain like this. When we do this love dub thing, but this is your brain. This is your brainstem. Brainstem. In the brainstem, you have the pons, which controls sleeping and waking and dreaming. So if you're dreaming of an almond joy, because that's my favorite candy, sure. You have the medulla, which has our bodily functions. You also have the reticular activating system, or the RAS, which is a dense network of neurons that screens incoming information and alerts the higher centers getting involved. That's a lot. So it's alertness. So if you're not alert, if you're sleepy, your reticular formation is offline, your reticular activating system. Let's get that going. Next, we have the cerebellum, which is, if we could pinch back here, if we had a little growth back here on our brain, that's our lesser brain. That's what it means in Greek. It gives us our sense of balance, our muscle coordination, remember simple skills and acquired reflexes. The idea that we have muscle memory comes from the cerebellum. It aids in analyzing sensory information, solving problems, and understanding words as well. Predominantly used for motor movement, though, and it doesn't communicate with the higher part of the brain. So the brain tells it how to do stuff, and it just stays there. So that's how we remember things, how to do things, procedural memories very easily. Next, we're moving up into the what we would call the midbrain now. We have the thalamus, who's the traffic officer of the brain. It directs sensory information to the higher centers, except for smell. Smell bypasses it because our olfactory bulb is hardwired right into the brain. It has its own center. It lies near the areas associated with emotions. It may explain why smell triggers memories very easily. So if we took our little brain that we're talking about, we picked up marbles. We had marbles in our hand. This is what our midbrain. There's stuff in here, but it's covered by the cerebral cortex. The thalamus sends 10,000 bits of sensory information to the brain every minute. That's high-speed internet, much different than what I have out here in the country. And then nearby, I don't have it on the picture though. We have the basal ganglia, which produces dopamine. Good. It also sends signals to the body for automatic behaviors and movements, and also it gives us muscle tone and rigidity, and so our skeletal thing works well. Going down into more of the midbrain, we have the hypothalamus, which we can do our animal brain like this, or we can use our knuckles. Our drives for survival, our 4 F's: food, fight, flight, and fornication or fun. So hunger, thirst, emotion, sex, reproduction is all in the hypothalamus. It regulates our body temperature. It literally means below the thalamus in Latin or Greek. Latin. Controls operations of the autonomic nervous system and the endocrine system. It also houses our biological clock, our circadian rhythms, all these wonderful things. Seems like the hypothalamus kind of has a lot going on. And then below that, you have the pituitary gland, or the master gland. Now, I am the master, which really takes orders from the hypothalamus and delivers them to the endocrine system. So the hypothalamus is like the emperor, and the pituitary gland is like Darth Vader. He's kind of in charge, but the emperor really holds him in place. Now we're down to the animal brain. So this is the animal brain. The human brain goes on top of that. So we have the amygdala, and we always do amygdala, fear and anger, this is all part of the limbic system, which is the border between the higher and lower parts of the brain. This is what we share with animals. We share 98% of our brain matter with animals. What makes us most human is this part right here, this prefrontal cortex. Is involved with the emotions that we share with animals. So the amygdala, which is shaped like a little almond, is Latin for almond. It evaluates sensory information, determines the emotional importance, but the two we associated with amygdala, we say it like that so we can go amygdala, fear and anger. It has our fight or flight urge, which is also a part of the hypothalamus. It has anger and fear, which sounds like a pathway to the dark side. And then finally, we have our hippocampus. We've been doing this all year. It relays the message. It actually looks like a seahorse is why it's named that. I'm not sure if that looks like a seahorse. But it's the gateway to memory. It enables us to form new memories. It relays messages for storage in the cerebral cortex. It recalls our long-term memories in the temporal lobe, brings them to the frontal cortex for short-term memory, retrieves memories for use in short-term memory, and then restores them for it. Pretty cool. Damage to the hippocampus would hinder the formation of new memories. Moving on to the cerebrum. This is where the higher forms of thinking occur, which is divided into two hemispheres. You can do two fists like this. It's connected by the corpus callosum, which actually has the two hemispheres communicate back and forth. They've done surgeries where they can actually disconnect that, and the brain still works okay. There's lateralization. The right hemisphere controls the left side of my body. The left hemisphere controls the right side of my body, and vice versa. In the cerebrum, we have the cerebral cortex, which is the thin layers of densely packed cells on the top of the brain. Gray matter is called because of its color. Other parts of the brain and the nervous system have myelin and covered axons and glia, and they're called white matter. Only about 3 millimeters or 1/8 of an inch thick, but it has 3/4 of all the cells of the human brain. It's pretty remarkable here, the cerebral cortex. Cortex, by the way, is Greek for tree bark. Just random fun fact for you. The cortex has many crevices and wrinkles, and it's packed with billions of neurons. Like if you take your skin and just kind of pinch it together like this, it makes little wrinkles, and it's because, you know, like your hand, it's got to fit into the skull, so it gives you all these little wrinkles going on here. So the lobes of the brain. What we learn, my mnemonic is foolish mom smoke pot. We go foolish mom smoke pot. So foolish is the frontal lobe. Moms is the motor cortex, helps us do things. Smoke is the sensory cortex, and then pot is the parietal, occipital, and temporal lobes. So that's how you can remember the lobes of the brain. The occipital lobe is our visual cortex. It's the first for vision. Parietal has the somatosensory cortex, which is, over here a little bit. That's the soma, remember, is the Greek word for body, and so it's our body movements and kind of things like that. It receives information about pressure, pain, touch, temperature from all over the body. Signals from the hands and the face are very large in this lobe. The temporal lobe is also called the auditory cortex. It runs all the way to your temples, to the back of your brain. Is it involved in memory? Our long-term memory is housed there. Perception, emotion, and of course the sense of hearing. It also has Wernicke's area, which is for language comprehension, so we can understand what we are listening to. The frontal lobe, our motor cortex, is up here, which controls our voluntary movements. It orders the 600 muscles in our body to work all at once. The left frontal lobe has the Broca's area, which is speech production. So if your Broca's a Broca, you know speaker. That's very stereotypical Italian of me. So your Broca's area is for speech production. But if your Broca's a Broca, you know speaker. That's stupid. Short-term memory is also housed in the frontal lobe. And then our prefrontal cortex, which is what makes us the most human for us males. This is still developing to the late 20s. It barely exists in mice and males. 3.5% of the brain is in the cat, 7% in dogs, but 29% in humans of our brain is a prefrontal cortex. It is involved in social judgment, rational decision-making, goal-setting, personality. There's the curious case of Phineas Gage. Doesn't fully develop till age 28 in males. Phineas Gage took a railway stave through his brain and changed his personality. There's a nasty video you can watch on the internet about it. Kind of remarkable. It's an anomaly. It's a nice case study. So here's the parts of the brain. Yay. Remember, foolish mom smoke pot. That's all I got. Hey, you made it through. That was a really tough section. If you have any questions, slow it down, repeat it. Hope you liked it, enjoyed that, and you learned something.